Hi, Tech. Thank you for coming on to the Point Taken podcast by Trimble. We're glad to have you here at Trimble Dimensions recording this. So, thank
My
you for
pleasure.
joining.
It's my first time here at Trimble Dimensions, and really it's been mind-blowing. So, great experience so far.
Tell us who you are and who you work for, what you do.
Thanks for having me here, Michael. So my name is Teck Thai Heng. I'm the Deputy CEO at the Building and Construction Authority in Singapore. So perhaps let me explain a little bit about what BCA does.
Sure.
Right. So BCA, well, we have two hats. The first is that we are actually the chief regulator in Singapore for the built environment sector.
Okay.
So for example, all construction that happens in Singapore, plans would come through us. We will coordinate with 6 other agencies, regulatory agencies, to approve the plans before construction starts.
Okay.
Before people move into the buildings, we'll do our inspections as well, right? So that's kind of the regulatory hat that we wear. We also wear a second hat, right? So our second mission is actually industry development. And in that area, we have 2 key objectives. So the first one is productivity. So just like many other places around the world, we are trying to raise productivity of our built environment sector in Singapore. And the second objective over there is actually sustainability, right? So anything to do with the built environment sustainability targets in Singapore, BCA actually owns that. We actually have a certification program similar to LEED in the US. It's called the Green Mark program, and we are the custodians of that program.
Right. So that second hat you talked about, what did you call the second hat?
Industry development.
Industry.
Yes.
Is that something that Singapore does that's different than other government agencies, would you say, or other groups doing that as well?
Yeah, in a way, I think it's somewhat different.
Okay.
In most other jurisdictions, what we've observed is that it's typically in 2 different organizations.
Oh, right.
So,
okay.
well, maybe for us, small country, so
Yeah.
we have it in the same organization. So it's a duality that we actually have to work around as well. But we've also found it to be quite meaningful and quite productive, quite efficient as well. Because on one hand, while we're regulating the industry, we do want to think about trying to be pro-enterprise in our approach as well. We don't want to create regulations which actually doesn't make sense for the industry.
Right.
So on the other end, basically when we do industry development, we work very closely with the industry, communicate with them. We have account managers for the progressive firms that we are trying to work with to lead and push boundaries in the industry. So we get feedback from them. We try to land all our aspirations on them, get them to do some of the things that we think the industry should be working on as well that is valuable to them, but we get feedback.
Okay.
And that's where then we work towards basically smarter regulations as well as a result.
Right. Yeah, it seems like having that under the same house, if you will, has
that's
some,
right.
some value and working together to do that. So okay.
Yes.
And I know your group has gone through, I guess you would call it digital transformation journey. Like
Yes.
sometimes people throw out that term, but I think it's
Yeah.
probably a good term to say.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what that has been for BCA?
Yeah, it's been a long journey, and I guess the way to characterize it for us is that BCA, in the industry development hat that we wear, we look at digital transformation for the entire sector. Right, so we work very closely with the industry to make sure that we're able to uplift their digital capabilities, again, to achieve the productivity objectives.
Okay.
So over the years, we've done quite a few things. I think if you look at it at different levels, firstly, it's we've come up with what we call the integrated digital delivery framework, which actually then looks at use cases for digitalization in the industry. We cover everything from design through to fabrication, assembly, construction, and then after that, operations and maintenance as well. So that's kind of the scope that BCA works on. And you can imagine there are many, many use cases out there. We defined it, we've actually put it out in industry so that industry can actually look to that as a reference for what they can actually put in place.
It's very clear what you need to do. Okay.
But that's just the first layer, right? Beyond that, actually quite a bit of training as well.
Okay.
So BCA does have an academy as well, right? As an academy, we actually work with a lot of industry practitioners to come in to teach, right? Basically, beam modeling capabilities, standards, how do they actually do the modeling, what is a good quality model. So good amount of training over there. Beyond that, we also work with Building Smart Singapore, the Singapore chapter, to do accreditation. So it's a very skills-based approach because at the end of the day, I think the boundaries between digital managers and architects, for example, are blurring. So we look at what are the skills that are needed basically for our professionals in the next several years and put that into in a way, a career skills framework, a career ladder for them to be actually accredited by the Building Smart Singapore team. Right? So these actually helps to build capacity for skills in Singapore.
Okay.
With firms, we actually then work with them on various things. So basically, once we have the people trained up, they need the tools. right? And for firms which are just starting out for the first time, small, medium enterprises, we actually have various tools which are approved for grant support as well. If they are using it for the first time, we actually help to subsidize some of the costs, right, to get them on that journey.
So you came up with this digital transformation strategy, if you will, but then you also said, hey, we're going to help you get there. We're not just going to be like, you have to follow in line.
Exactly.
So,
It's just what firms, I think, all the users of Trimble products actually go through as well. There's a lot of change management that's needed, customer success, right, in this world.
Was there any resistance when you were going through that you had to deal with?
Oh, always.
Yeah, was it with the commercial, the industry side, or was it in the government, or both? Or?
Both. So with the industry side, I think that's where, the typical change management challenges, right? There's always a good way of doing things. So there's a lot of cajoling, a lot of finding proof points, which is why we work with some of the progressive firms to be able to do things which are more challenging than everybody else, what the usual standard in the market is. So they do it, we get them to share it as well, we point to those as successful case studies. They would be able to advocate and say that yes, there's actually a lot of value that we've gotten from making that change, encourage everybody, right? At the end of the day, we can't force everybody to do it. They have to come across, doing it by understanding the value. Within the government as well, there's quite a bit of change management too. We are actually moving from basically, while we have 3D BIM submissions that has been allowed for quite a while, I think it was 2015, 2016 we started with that. A lot of the approvals are actually still done on 2D because it's, our officers are much more comfortable with that. So we are actually mandating all submissions to be actually done on 3D BIM models now. Front end coordinated between architectural, civil structural, mechanical, electrical and plumbing as well. One single BIM model that's coordinated, submitted to the government, and then amongst our regulatory agencies that I mentioned just now, 7 agencies would all look at the same model, and then they would then use the 3D BIM model, be able to wrangle it, work with it, and manipulate the 3D BIM model to make sure that they're able to check and pass all the code compliances. So there's a huge amount of change management that's going on over there as well.
Yeah, right. On, like you said, on both sides of that. Was there some key leadership or some key people that were really needed to get this transformation happening? Or?
I think certainly. So this, we call it Cornet X, this program which I'm moving on to. We've only just made it mandatory this year. But in the progress of getting there was actually a core team that was leading this. Frankly, when it was started a few years ago, it really felt like Mission Impossible. So it was we actually did rally quite a bit of the industry to come along, walk through user journey as well, so that they understand what the officers go through, the regulatory officers understand what the industry goes through when they're doing the coordination of the BIM models. But through that, basically then designing the Cornet X platform, what the user experience is like. But it's something that actually needed to take quite a bit of courage. But I think I'm glad that we stuck with that. We've gone through a sandbox voluntary stage over the last couple of years. October 1st this year, just last month, we've actually just made it mandatory for large projects. So those projects are now coming in. The new projects above 30,000 square meters are coming in on the Cornet X program.
Wow, and that, again, is the 3D submission?
Yes, that's right. So 3D, the plans coming in 3D form, all the agencies officers would basically comment on the same 3D BIM model. And if the agencies have clashes, they have to actually work it out. Because what one agency wants may actually conflict with what the other agency wants in the same time and space.
And so that system helps find those clashes and lets you work it out, especially early on, instead of you get a year into a project and are finding these things out.
Exactly. And all the good stuff that comes with digitalization and 3D BIM. Basically, once you have it on the same system, you're actually able to dashboard it. You're able to have a single source of truth. You're able to have basically the industry be able to look at the process where it's at right now, what sort of written directions or feedback from the agency officers have come up, and be able to address them. So everybody's on the same page, single source of truth.
Can we jump into AI, and can you tell me how BCA is approaching AI?
So we do see AI as a game changer, certainly. I think quite glad to have it come along because productivity in Singapore, I think for our construction sector, that's probably one saving grace. I think that's possibly a way out. We don't have enough people in the sector to be able to do all the work. We have a lot of construction demand that's coming as well. But maybe let me touch on a few ways of how we are how we are seeing AI being used in the industry. Right. So in 2022, we actually launched a periodic facade inspection regime. Right, so which means that we have a lot of sky risers, tall buildings in Singapore. All the facades, the buildings are getting old, so we are worried about facades. We don't want anything falling from the buildings, right? So we've actually started a program where we work with drone service providers, have them basically send drones up. So that's one digitalization use case. But on top of that, the video images which are collected by the drones, they actually run through an AI algorithm to be able to pick out where problem areas potentially could be, so that then of an entire facade of a large building, you're able to then pinpoint areas to go deeper into. Right, so that uses AI. I think it's really recognition of images. Right, so that's one. Another area is safety, and that's where some of our startups actually are also come into play as well. Right, for example, you set up CCTVs on site, be able to scan the site. But at the same time, you're able to then train the models to be able to recognize if, let's say, there's some lifting works that's going on, there are certain areas which workers should stay out of, or if workers are not wearing their PPE, it's able to be picked up. If there are incidents on site, then it gets picked up as well. And one example of a company actually is AI-lytics. Is actually presenting at the construction startup competition as well. As they were one of the finalists, so we wish them well.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, and then a third area which we are looking at
on safety. I had a deeper dive into the technology of it, because I have like a spatial brain approach to a lot of things. I could see AI looking at video and facades and maybe like recognizing a texture or a crack and things like that, or even something happening that's not supposed to. But does it have a spatial awareness in the video? Like, is it able to look at like a geofence or saying, even within a video, we can tell you're in an unsafe area? Is that as well? Okay.
So I believe AI-lytics technology, it uses basically multiple video cameras. So you actually do have a little bit of stereoscopic vision. You have some depth perception as well. So when lifting is going on, you're able to then mark out what are the areas on the ground, on the 2D plane, basically that workers should not be in, given where the item is on the crane above the ground. Right, so it does have that spatial perception thing.
Okay, so you can solve it with video instead of needing like a GPS or other navigation sensor. The video actually can solve it. That's pretty clever.
Exactly. So it's pretty cool. I think it's actually led to quite a bit of improvement in terms of savings, in terms of fewer people that needs to be on the ground to be monitoring. You can actually have it on the CCTV and then run it through the algorithm to give some real-time feedback as well.
It's also that topic of AI and safety is really interesting, because everyone's talking about it for everything, but a lot of times it's really refreshing to hear some really helpful, helping save lives or keep people safe is a really good thing. That if we can do that better with AI, that's a really good
it's really a force multiplier. You see that.
And there was
the third one. That's right. So that's where I guess when I mentioned just now ConnectX, the program which the platform which we rolled out. So all BIM submissions now are going to come in 3D BIM model. Now the next step over there is how do we actually make sure that the BIM models are code compliant. Right, we have about 6,000 codes in Singapore, 6,000 rules in Singapore across all the different agencies. It's not humanly possible to remember all 6,000 rules, right, for every architect out there that's designing the BIM models. And what we like to do is actually then apply some AI to it. Right, so it is technically quite challenging still. I guess we call it it's kind of state of the art right now. On the rules themselves, that's possible because that's all text, and then you can have LLMs ingest that in a couple of minutes, and the LLM would understand basically what the rules are talking about. But to apply that understanding into a BIM model, in the 3D space, and to look at a BIM model and understand, for example, a curb is a curb, and it's not a low table. Right? So humans can understand that, but then there are rules that then apply to a curb. What's the maximum height, etc. So there is actually a little bit of technology development that's going on right now in the industry. So BCA is actually quite keen on working with various startups out there to be able to develop that capability and then help both the officers to be able to interrogate the BIM models efficiently, and then help the architects be able to, I guess, when the BIM model is done, is born compliant.
Okay. Yeah. I think certainly catching some of those clashes again, is what you might say, or things that were not up to code or spec. Is right. What that is going to be able to do. And you're even saying it can do it before you submit it.
Yes,
which I imagine
that's powerful.
Right, and with a lot of the industry or commercial,
it's
probably very frustrating if you submit something to government and then a long time goes by and then you find out it doesn't up to code or something. So catching it before you even submit it seems to be...
It's a huge pain point, I think. I'm sure not just for us in
Singapore.
Yeah,
both sides. So everyone can agree this is a good
exactly.
Step, so.
Exactly, because it's frustrating for the officers as well, right? To actually have to keep correcting mistakes and feel that I'm your teacher trying to tell you to get better. Why can't you get better, right? So it's taking the frustration away. I think putting that power in the hands of the architects. And hopefully in the first round, first submittal, you get the approval.
You said teacher. I wish we had it in school where you could submit your report before and know if it's going to be an A or not. So.
And someone else check it.
Right.
It goes in there.
Okay. And there was a third topic.
That
you wanted to...
I guess I mentioned a little bit about startups as well. Technologies.
Let's talk about that.
Right. So, like for the model checker, we are working with various startups. But in the broader sense, you can see that basically given the productivity gap that we have in Singapore, at least we perceive that we know that there's a gap over there. We're trying to close that gap for productivity. We need technology solutions. Right? And that's where we're very hungry for technology solutions. Not a huge market, we're not a small market. We have about $40 billion worth of business, that's construction business that's being signed every year. So it's not small, but at the same time, given the opportunity that we have over there, for that $40 billion of business, we are very hungry for new solutions. So we are orienting ourselves to make sure that we are able to add value to the startups, technology startups, so that they will be attracted to Singapore, right? And the way,
And what is it that the startup needs to have a location or base in Singapore, or is it just any startup that could help?
Yes, exactly. So especially these days, I guess post-COVID, many of us, professionals and in the industry as well, we're used to working remotely as well. So we are indifferent as to whether the startups need to be in Singapore, as long as they're able to deliver the solutions. But we want to make sure that we offer value to the startups, right? So the way we are doing it is, we can see, I guess, in my past life, I was actually in the VC business, and I was a VC and a private equity investor as well. And one of the pain points for startups is to basically go out and collect logos. You need to run pilots. You need to actually be able to pitch. But you can't go cold calling all day long and have a hit rate that's like 1% or 2%. And even for those, you're not sure whether they can get to actually kind of a trial solution. So for us, basically then, given that we are a regulator, we talk to everybody in the industry. And then for the industry development head, we have account managers, which then are familiar with different companies, what are typologies they built, what are the phases of project they are in, what are some of the challenges that they've gone through and they feel particularly strongly about to try to solve. And then do some of these companies have an innovation manager, or do we talk to the project manager on the ground who is interested and motivated to solve that problem? By understanding that, we're able to then, I guess, create essentially a platform which then startups can plug into. So my team basically has been very active in at least matchmaking, connecting the dots. But over the last few years, we've actually become more proficient in organizing thematic seminars. So because in understanding the needs in the industry, the sophisticated demand, we know that there's enough volume of interest, let's say, in 3D concrete printing. And we set up a thematic exchange seminar, right, a tech exchange seminar. We bring in the various companies which are doing work in that area, and then we make sure that the companies can basically matchmake and talk amongst themselves. So then we take ourselves out of the loop as well. But in short, what we're trying to do is create that business development flywheel that makes it really efficient, and for startups to be able to get started, right, to get their first good customers in, meaningful projects, get the pilot trials going, and from there, use Singapore as a springboard.
It's interesting. Something that stood out to me, I think, across everything you said is just thoughtfulness. It seems like this approach that this journey you've gone down, it's just very thoughtful of, okay, we need to do this, we need to be safer, we need to do things a little bit faster to save time. But you do it with a way of like, okay, well, let's try to understand where everyone's come from within the government and multiple agencies, within industry. It just seems a very thoughtful approach, and bringing everyone in, communicating well to that. It seems like you've done a great job with that.
Thank you. So, that's I guess one thing that's common in the ethos across the Singapore government, right? That we want to make sure that there's win-win. At the end of the day, we have to make sure that the businesses in Singapore are successful. If they are successful, then people can be paid well, they have meaningful jobs. Okay. So the orientation is indeed to make sure that there's an understanding of the industry, and then the hard work is where how do we balance that, right? How do we actually find a win-win creative solution which actually meets everybody's needs? Yeah. So that's it's still tough. Yeah. Even if it seems that we've sorted out, I assure you it's actually a lot of hard work still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. Well, thank you for joining the Point Taken podcast by Trimble.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Great to have you on here and sharing a little bit about what BCA does. Is there anything else that you want to share that we missed that you want to cover in the last minute or so?
I guess my last message to listeners, to your listeners as well, is keep Singapore in mind when you're thinking of new solutions and new features and new ways of doing things. We would really be quite keen to work with partners to be able to land some of these and be able to showcase some of these to our industry, and then from there have our industry adopt it, and then it becomes something that's valuable for them, the users, and also the offerers as well.
Well, thank you for coming on to the podcast. It's been great to hear what Singapore is doing in the building construction world, or even the entire construction, I think, of what you do. So thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Yeah, my pleasure. I think we are really glad to be here to be able to do this sharing, and hopefully your listeners can have some takeaways from there. And that's really one thing which I really appreciate about this industry. There's a lot of camaraderie, what we call same but different problems. So we really are quite happy to be able to contribute and help, and we hope that we're able to strike up some opportunities with all of Trimble's partners as well to be able to solve the same common problems.
Yeah, well, I learned a lot, and I think a lot of people will from hearing it. So thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you very much.